A while ago, one of our RevitaLab coaches asked what could be done about a client that she had that wasn't getting out of victim mode. Now, to add to some of the complexity of this was a client who she had had for a while and who had been successful, had a good track record of getting results. But recently, in her most current coaching sessions with this client, she just was venting and being in victim mode and didn't seem to be able to get out of it. Here's how the coach described these sessions. Maybe because I've had her as a client for a while, I'm too familiar to her. She feels too safe with me. I feel like I'm her dumping ground. I don't think being a trash can is all that helpful. I'm not feeling useful, and I just want to tell her to stop. And then she asked, how do I help a leader who remains a victim, and how can I help them see the pattern that they're in? There can be organizational reasons for why a leader feels victimized, and helping the leader discover those root causes can be a very successful way to help them get out of victim mode and back into empowering themselves to create the changes they need to make. Or what if the organizational environment is not the dominant trigger for this venting victim mode? What if the leader has dipped into an emotional funk because of other stressors, home, schedule, relationship, or economic stressors? That is also a productive path to take, to show the contrast between their past self and their current self. Now remember that bringing your presence to your client is bringing backbone with heart. That means your tone is going to be clear, unflinching, curious, and compassionate, all at the same time. That's the tone you bring when you point out to the leader that you experience them very differently than you've experienced them before. You describe the contrast. For example, you've seen them before feel daunted yet committed to forging ahead in very challenging situations. And now you're experiencing them deflated by a challenge with no path forward. You can ask them, how do they account for this difference in their response to challenging circumstances? At this point, you offer no solutions or advice. You simply keep sharing the contrast you're experiencing in them and feed back the distinctions they discover through your conversation. If their helplessness isn't on its way to becoming a character trait, your clarity and curiosity may remind them of the ways they've faced challenges successfully before and help them grab a hold of those strengths, habits, and realizations they have that allow them to climb out of their feelings of helplessness. But what if there are no apparent organizational or personal stressors that the leader has unearthed during your sessions, and they seem to want only to use your time together to vent? Then it's time to stop talking around the leader's embrace of victim mode, focusing on the causes or contrasting it to their past selves. And it's time to start talking directly to it, to their response, their choice to embrace their victimhood. The way through this situation, as I mentioned before, is the use of your presence, and for two reasons. At this point, you may be sorely tempted to rescue your client from their helplessness. The pull to have an answer for them can be overwhelmingly, overpoweringly strong. Using your presence instead snaps you back to realize that your client is responsible for their choices and solutions. Providing a suggestion to a client when they are in victim mode is fruitless. They can fling suggestions aside like a professional ping pong player slams the ball back over the net before you even have time to react. Ironically, victims who see themselves as fragile are some of the most powerful, but masters in the universe. Second, your presence throws the leader back on themselves. It's one of the most effective ways to help clients detox from becoming victims or remaining victims. So the approach you can use when the leader is entrenched in their victim mode is confront their commitment to victimhood. This brings both of you into the present moment, and you've just become less familiar to them, more unpredictable, more in the moment, more challenging, in a more bracing way. You drop any shred of coddling compassion you might have accidentally been showing and go for the challenging compassion you have for them. You have to resign from tolerating what they are doing right now in your coaching sessions with them. They've stopped learning and turned your conversations into venting events, not learning moments. You have to throw them back on themselves, to confront themselves with a little tough love. Being thrown back on themselves, where all true change starts, is their best chance of snapping out of their victim trance. Confronting a leader on their commitment to victimhood can take all kinds of forms, and we each have to create our own way of doing it. It has to be unique to you because only you can be authentically present as you in that moment. There is not a set of magic words or a sure formula. It's guided by resigning from being a co-conspirator in their victimhood and compassionately challenging them to center themselves as the igniter of change in their circumstances. But I can share some phrases I use that might be helpful to you by stimulating your imagination on how you could say it in your own way so that a client reaches for their resilience right when they don't think they have any. I don't deliver these messages all in one big drop, like throwing dozens of parachuting soldiers out of an airplane. I don't even say all of this to any one client. This is just in my repertoire when I need it. I start saying things like, well, if all you're going to do is focus on what you're not liking or what's not working, then I've turned into a really high-paid therapist. And I don't think it's a good investment of your organization to pay for these kinds of conversations during our coaching sessions. Truly, I can't be paid to solely hear you describe how unhappy you are about the situation. I understand your frustration and your feelings are completely normal. I can see you continuing to be miserable, though, if we spend our time on how you feel and it's not tied to action. In fact, sometimes that can make you feel temporarily better but still helpless. There are only two of us here in this session, and I can't make anybody out their change. I can't even make you change. And no one else is going to change and make this better and save you from this situation just because you and I are in this conversation about how frustrated you are. So that leaves only one option. The only person who can change this situation is the person I'm talking to right now. The only option is for you to change your response to the issue. Only you are the initiator of the change you want to see in this situation. What we can talk about that could help you feel less deflated are the changes you want to make, both internally and externally, to create a different experience in this situation. I'm really up for our conversations to help you remember and get in touch with your strengths and resilience to address situations just like this, and for you to come up with a plan of action that you are committed to. I take my time, create many silent pauses, let the leader stew in the challenge I've laid at their feet, let them experience these words as evidence that I'm on their side, even if it's tough love. I leave all kinds of room for them to respond. The backbone aspect is that I don't back down from this central message. The heart aspect is that I endorse their innate strength and resilience to address their challenge and find a way through that matches who they are and who they want to be, which is their best self. Okay, here's the silver lining. When you think of using your presence as a leverage point for change, you can actually start thinking of these conversations as bracing adventures in a way that beforehand you might have dreaded, but that now you actually look forward to because you know that you can get up for these conversations and that you've planned and you're prepped for them. One way to be ready for the next time you do have a client who believes they are helpless is to plan and prep in the way I outlined in another video in the presence passage. In this case, plan would be brainstorming a list of sentences that would deliver your backbone and heart messages so that the leader hears both your resignation from co-conspirator in their victimhood and they hear your belief in their resilience. Prep is dialing into the mood, the tone that will allow you to deliver both backbone and heart. Another part of prep is to create a motto that will signify your mood to you. For me, that motto is often fierce tenderness. Don't back down from an important message and deliver it with compassion. That is your job when using your presence in conversations with leaders.